I think sometimes it takes God breaking you down and stripping all of these things that you think make you powerful, make you successful, make you superior away from you to show you who you really are. Mimi, can you stop, please, please? If you hear a bell sound effect in the background, it is my cat. She is currently grooming herself, but new setup. I know y'all have never seen this before, but we are in my bedroom right now. I decided that I'd switch it up for today's video, give it a more intimate vibe, since this is a much more intimate subject than the subjects I typically discuss on my channel. But before we get started, I want to lay down a couple of disclaimers. I feel like it's kind of sad that I have to say some of these things, but at least I gave the disclaimer. So the first disclaimer I want to just lay down on the table is that I am not perfect. I feel like that is implied because you as a viewer are also not perfect. It feels like you have to remind people these days, because showing up as a Muslim online means showing up perfect, especially as a hijabi, as a visibly Muslim woman. You are expected to be perfect and without flaw, and that is just not my reality or the reality of many Muslim women who show up online, because we are sinners and our default is to sin. That does not mean complacency is okay, but it means that we should have a lot more grace with one another. So if I appear to be in a way that is not Islamic enough for you, you are more than welcome to click out of the video. This is not a video me telling y'all how I have perfected my faith or how amazing I have gotten at this life thing. This is just me sharing my testimony. So if you are expecting a perfect Muslim here, you can go ahead and exit the video, because that is not me. I'm far from it, and we all are far from it. Disclaimer number 2 is that I am not a scholar. Kind of goes hand in hand with number 1, but I don't know everything. I'm learning every single day. I will be taking this video from more so my perspective rather than an Islamic perspective, only because I'm not a scholar and I cannot just dish out hadiths, because I don't know which ones are authentic, which ones are inauthentic. So this is just my story, okay? Disclaimer number 3, I'm not a revert. I know the title may seem a little bit misleading, but this is the story of how I found Islam again. I think a lot of us Muslims who were born into the faith can relate on the fact that there comes a time where you have to choose to be Muslim. You have to choose Islam for yourself. And this is the story of how I did that twice. And last but not least, everyone is more than welcome to view this video as long as you are here with positive vibes, okay? You do not have to be Muslim to watch this. You can believe whatever you want to believe. But as long as you're watching this, you are bound to be a respectful viewer and only leave respectful comments under this video and keep the respectful discussion going. I've not been this nervous for a video in a while. Like, I can feel butterflies in my belly, but I feel like I need to do this for the direction I would like my channel to take. On that note, welcome back to my channel. It is your girl, Tomiwa, Rodia, and I am here to tell you guys the story of how I found Islam again. A little bit of background on me. I was born and raised Muslim. Parents were also born and raised Muslim. The family I was raised up in was, I would say, pretty average when it comes to worship. You know, we prioritize our 5 daily prayers. I went to Sunday school, we fast. There are certain things that aren't like common practice within my family, like hijab, for example. I'm one of the first in my family to wear it. The main objective is that I came from a Muslim family who practiced Islam, and I grew up being taught a lot of rituals and practices without much spirituality behind it. And I think a lot of us can relate to that story. When we are young, we're taught to pray, but we don't know what we're saying if we don't speak Arabic. We're taught to make dhikr, we're taught to read Quran, and a lot of this stuff can be hard for us to connect to because we do not quite understand or have minimal understanding of the things that we're going to Sunday school to learn. By the way, y'all, I was in and out of Sunday school. A little more background. I'm from Toronto, I'm from Canada. I was born and raised in Canada until I was like 13 years old, and by the time I moved to US, Sunday school was very on and off, but I was pretty consistent in my younger days, my upbringing when I was little. Essentially, growing up, like, I learned a lot of stuff but didn't understand the reasoning or meanings behind a lot of the things I was doing. So it was very hard for me to connect with my faith and even to connect with God initially, which led to a lot of identity issues. It led to a lot of confusion. It led to a lot of self-doubt. It led to a lot of questions about where we go after this life and what this life is for, the purpose behind it, what my own purpose is. I think we all have moments in our life where we come across questions like that. So by the time I moved to the US, I was praying, I was fasting, but nothing was really resonating with me. To me, fasting back then meant just the practice of empathy for people who have less than we do. And in a way, you know, that is one of the lessons that we can pull from fasting, but essentially fasting is not for the sole purpose of showing empathy towards those who have less than us. Prayers as well, that's one thing I will say, like, alhamdulillah, I never lost them, but I never quite connected with them for a great deal of my adolescent years. I did my high school here in the US, and oh my goodness, the amount of identity crises I experienced while I was in high school, like, just imagine this, okay? You showing up out of school down south in the USA, very small town, and I'm just a walking anomaly. I'm a black girl from Canada who is also African, who also happens to be Muslim but doesn't look like it. I never quite fit in. Like, it was very hard for me to find anyone else like me, and a lot of people did not understand my identity, to the point where I somewhat started to suppress it and not feel very proud of it. But as high school went on and I tried to fight against who I naturally am, it was nearing my senior year of high school where I kind of just gave in, and I was like, I'm tired of trying to be like y'all boring to me anyway. No offense to anyone I went to high school with, but like the general population of people at my high school were quite similar. Like, everybody was the same upbringing, same clothes, same food, same everything. So it felt so wrong being my full 100% authentic self up until high school, where I just found myself sick and tired of trying to fit in and be like everybody else. That was around the time where I started looking into Islam like properly, to the point where I literally embraced the hijab. What helped me gain a better understanding of my faith was seeing other Muslim influencers on social media. Around that time, Instagram was very new. I think I had had Instagram for probably like 3 years, and I had started coming across like the first few Muslim influencers on the internet. Niyaz and Spaz, Omaya Zain. There were so many that when I saw them, I was like, oh my God, they're Muslim just like me, but like, they're normal. Like, they have normal lives. They dress up, they do videos, they're normal people. But where I lived at the time, like, I saw nobody like me unless I went to the mosque. There was no one I could really relate to at my high school. So that was a big part of the reason why I fought my identity for so long, and I tried to run from who I really was. But social media played a huge role in me practicing the hijab for the first time. So huge shout out to the OGs, okay, the OG hijabis who were on the internet. I know a lot of people have mixed opinions about Muslim influencers, but seriously, their voices are so important, especially for those of us who are in places where we do not have access to people who look like us or practice the same faith as us. So around that time, like, honestly, it was the Muslim influencers who encouraged me to embrace my faith more. So leading up to my senior year in high school, I put on the hijab, and it only lasted a summer, but the intention is what was there, okay? My faith had reached an all-time high, and it didn't just have to do with hijab. It had to do with everything. Like, I was researching constantly every single day, whatever I could pick up and learn about the faith, and I was genuinely developing a spiritual connection with Allah and with Islam. And oh my gosh, I can just remember the like high I was on at the time, being so young. Like, I had fully accepted, like, you know, my fate as a human, like my mortality. Like, I'm gonna go someday, I'm gonna die someday, but I'm in good hands, okay? God got me. Like, I don't know what it was, but seriously, like, I was just on a spiritual high, alhamdulillah. So much that I literally took my senior photos in hijab. And if you look in my senior yearbook, you will literally see me wearing my hijab. Sadly, after that summer, I ended up taking off the hijab, mainly because I didn't have much support from a lot of the people around me, and the rate at which I was learning about Islam and showing my excitement towards dressing modestly and wearing the hijab, it scared a lot of the people around me, because I was not speaking about my new discoveries. Everything was happening internally between me and God. Everyone else was just seeing the aftermath of it outwardly. So everyone else got a little bit scared, because it was like, where is this coming from? Like, you are not acting like yourself. So yeah, I didn't have much support. Those were the main things that kind of led to me falling back down that hill of spirituality, or that high of spirituality. And honestly, it couldn't have happened at a worser time, because that was around the time where I was entering college, where I probably would have needed it more than any other time in my life. If you've been to college, or you know people who go to college, you know that college is one of the biggest tests that you can face, for the simple fact that you are out in the world on your own, relying on the lessons and teachings that you had growing up, but essentially you're able to do whatever you want to do. It is not easy to stick to those morals, especially if you have already started questioning a lot of them before you left your nest. So college is where you really have your morals and your values and your identity tested for the first time ever. So, oh my God, going to college, I don't think I even have the right word for it, but I forgot to mention that I was a little bit sheltered while I was in high school, specifically because of the move from Canada to the US. My parents, especially my mom, did not feel as safe living here in the US. So for that reason, during my high school years, I was very, very sheltered. I was not allowed to like have sleepovers unless my friends came to my house. I was not allowed out past certain times. I didn't go to most high school functions. I was very sheltered, okay? So college, in the simplest of terms, I didn't know how to act. I mean this in every aspect of life, okay? Food-wise, within the first semester, I had gained the freshman 15. Mind you, I entered school in Summer B. Summer B is not like a typical semester. Summer B is 6 weeks at most. So I ended up gaining like 15 pounds in 6 weeks. Not to talk of every other area of my life that I was just spiraling because I did not have a good grasp of my values and the things I grew up on. I just felt like, wow, I'm free to do whatever I want, so let me turn up. And that's exactly what I did. And yeah, to keep it a buck, college was a mess, a complete and utter mess. But what I will say is that I'm proud of myself for, at the very, 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 very least, not losing my prayers, not losing my salat. No matter what happened, no matter what stage I was in, no matter what I was doing, I always prayed my 5 daily prayers. And I think that single-handedly kept the smallest line of connection between me and God, just enough for me to get pulled back once it was all said and done and I needed him more than anything. Throughout college, I didn't have many Muslim friends either, and I was really, really scared of participating in my school's MSA, or Muslim Student Association, for the simple fact that I was like one of the only, I had went to like one meeting and I was the only, first of all, black girl in the room. Second of all, I was the only one who wasn't wearing hijab. So I immediately felt out of place. And throughout college, my experience was kind of like, you know, the girl who's too Muslim for the non-Muslims, but not Muslim enough for the Muslims. So I kind of just felt like I fell in this weird gray area. But luckily enough, near the end of my college experience, I did find my bestie, Habby. I also met my girl, Tay. So I'm so grateful for their friendship, honestly, because throughout, like, if I could have met them sooner, I think a lot of things would have changed within me a lot quicker. But for the most part, like, throughout my college experience, I didn't have many Muslim friends. I didn't have much of a Muslim foundation to keep me down to earth, and I would have loved that, but everything happens for a reason. I think it's important to acknowledge the nuance that exists inside of regret. We live in a society today where people are like, oh, I don't regret anything, no regrets for the life I've lived. I will never say I regret anything because then I wouldn't be grateful for the position I'm in today. And it's like, no, baby, you can absolutely regret a decision you made while also being grateful for the experiences that it has led you to. People forget nuance, especially on the internet, and it is very concerning to me why people are so black and white on here. But I 100% regret a lot of the decisions I made in college, but I'm also very grateful for a lot of them because I would not be who I am today without every single mess up I made in the past. My last couple semesters of college were extremely toxic, just like the worst environment you could ever picture a person being in. It's like all of my decisions, my poor decisions, were catching up to me, and by that point I just wanted to be out of college, okay? I was looking forward to having the new fresh start of not having to worry about school, getting into my career, and just like busying up myself enough to not think about the immense levels of anxiety that I had started to experience in college. Things had gotten so bad that I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder. I was prescribed buspirone, which I never took. but things got really bad for me. I was still so self-reliant, which I think is another reason why it took me a long time to have this second spiritual awakening. A toxic trait that I know a lot of firstborns can relate to is being an extremely self-reliant person and thinking that you can hold the entire world on your shoulders, and there's no room for faith within that picture. Like, if you think you got everything, then what's left for God to take care of for you, you know? So because for a while, like, I was so extremely self-reliant and I just thought I had all the answers and I could do everything on my own, I ended up developing crippling anxiety to the point where I would have heart palpitations and mostly physical symptoms of anxiety that made it so difficult for me to essentially graduate college. But by the grace of Allah, even though I was so strayed, so lost, so far from the path he probably wanted me to be on, he still allowed me to graduate in order to reach the next level that essentially led to me being where I am today. Upon graduating college, I think that was around the time that COVID hit, I was just in a place where, you know, there were a lot of opportunities for me to reflect. I know a lot of people found their faith within the pandemic, but again, me being the toxic self-reliant girl that I was, I just felt like I was gonna figure it out. I had all the answers. I got me. I am okay. It wasn't until the beginning of 2022 that I experienced one of the biggest heartbreaks ever, that I literally had nowhere else to turn to. I couldn't even turn to myself. I literally had no choice but to turn to Allah. Everyone's story with, you know, getting closer to God, finding God, experiencing God is different, but I'm just a very hard-headed individual, and it took a lot of built up disappointments for me to finally let go of the hard act that I've been going through life with for so long, to finally succumb to the fact that I don't have all the answers. I am just a girl and I need help. Like, I need something outside of me. So at the start of 2022, I would say that was around the start of the separation between my parents, which was extremely hard to deal with. They had been together for 25 years, and that wasn't bad enough. I made the decision to also walk away from a relationship I was in at the time, and I was very vocal about the relationship on this channel. Vocal in the sense that I let y'all know that I had a partner, I was in a relationship, and I regret that. I really do regret that, not because the relationship ended, but it was just a poor act on me, knowing my faith and knowing what my faith says about haram relationships. If you don't know, haram relationship is essentially a forbidden relationship. Anything outside of marriage is forbidden. So if you are calling somebody your boyfriend that has not put a ring on your finger, that is haram. Walking away from that was very difficult, but the separation between my parents was a huge wake-up call for me that forced me to be a lot more intentional with my life and the decisions I was making and the things that I was allowing to just continue in my life, kind of like on autopilot, without thinking, like, where will I end up in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, making the same decisions I'm making today. So beginning of 2022 was extremely hard, but I think that was around the time where I started to realize that I needed God, and in order to rely on God and come to God with my troubles, I needed to shed all of the haram. I needed to let go of all of the things that he didn't even want me to have in my life in the first place. So it was difficult, but the only reason I'm sharing it is because I was very vocal about the fact that I was in a relationship at one point, and I want to take the opportunity to retract that statement and encourage you guys to really reflect if you are in a similar position as I was in a haram relationship. And essentially, like, if you want Allah's barakah, if you want Allah's blessing within your relationships, like, you need to do it the correct way. And that was just the biggest lesson for me at the start of 22. And I was like, if I want to break the cycle, if I want the marriage of my dreams, if I want that family I've been praying for since I was little, like, I cannot do it my way. This was just another instance of me trying to do life my way, trying to figure things out my way, me being self-reliant, putting the world on my shoulders when I have a God who will literally take care of all of that for me. But I fought that idea for so long until I literally couldn't. So the year of 2022 was extremely hard. Not to mention that I also got my real estate license around that time, which was a great distraction, but if I had known that the year would go like that, I don't think I would have proceeded with it, only because like it was so difficult to maintain that focus whilst also going through so much. But my faith, if anything, is what pulled me out of that place. I think sometimes it takes God breaking you down and stripping all of these things that you think make you powerful, make you successful, make you superior away from you, to show you who you really are and how limited you really are and how much you need him. So in 2022, those were some of the first times I was able to make sincere, genuine dua towards God, where I didn't have guilt about something. I didn't have questions of whether my dua would be answered. It was just straight up dua after dua after dua. Even if I wasn't praying salat, baby, I was making dua. I was making dua in the car, driving to my class, on the way back, driving from, even in the midst of class, real estate class, I was making dua. I was just talking and talking and talking and talking to God. And that was the first time where I realized that God listens. Like, God hears you, he listens, and he's there all the time. I had been spiritually coasting by for so long that I had never had many, genuine conversations with Allah. I didn't even know that that was something I could do. I thought it was just prayer, salat, fast during Ramadan, and do your best. I had no idea that you can genuinely just reach out to God, talk to him, ask him for the things that you want to see happen in your life, ask him to take your sorrows and your pain away and help you heal from things that are completely outside of your willpower to handle or your control. And honestly, that was the start of me rebuilding my faith and finding Islam again. It was when I realized that I can talk to God. It sounds very simple, but genuinely, I know so many people need to hear this, because a lot of us get stuck in the rituals and forget the meaning behind them. And it was in 2022 that I made a vow to myself that after every single salat I pray, I have to make dua and invite God into my day. So even if it means making dua that God helps me make my breakfast healthy, I'm gonna make dua about that. Or after dhuhr, I would pray like, oh Allah, help me through my tasks for the day. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this done. I'm overwhelmed. Make it easy for me to succeed. Like, I became so reliant on Allah that I was reading my Quran for the first time, and a lot of the things that I didn't understand about Islam, I was debunking them, I was learning them, I was finally gaining that knowledge that I had been starving for my entire life. And listen, one thing about God, you take 1-2 steps towards him, he runs in your direction. The pain and the tears and so many things I cried about and begged him for, like, oh, I didn't think I was gonna cry in today's video. There were so many things I had prayed about, and less than a year later, like, I'm living in the midst of those prayers. And not just superficial things. Like, it's very easy to think like I'm praying from a superficial standpoint, but I prayed for healing, and I prayed to be able to get over a lot of the heartbreaks I've experienced in the past. I prayed to be able to forgive a lot of people. Y'all, this is literally an old shirt from my laundry basket. I just prayed to be able to move on, move forward with my life, and have faith for a future that was better than my past. Not that my past was that amazing. My past was absolutely not that amazing. But when you're in the midst of it, it can feel like things won't get better than the current moment. But subhanAllah, like, God completely changed my life around. Okay, 2022 was also the first year that I started praying tahajjud, and that was also a life-changing experience as well, game changer for me. To summarize, I had to reach my lowest moment to learn that all I had to do from the beginning was call out to Allah and he would answer. You also need to learn about God, and that was a big thing that I did over the past year, and I'm still doing. Reading the Quran, memorizing the surahs, and learning the meaning behind the surah so I know what I'm saying in prayer. Right now, I'm memorizing the 99 names of Allah just to get a better understanding of Him and all of the things that He is for us without us even having to ask Him to be those things. That is how I found Islam again. That is how I found Allah again. And that is how I started wearing the hijab. I think it was the beginning of this year that I'm like, when did I put on the hijab? It feels like it's been years, but it was the beginning of this year that I put on my hijab. And it was because I reached such a love for God and such a reliance on Him, such a dependence on Him, that I just wanted to do everything right. So modesty became beautiful to me, and it became, more than anything, another way I can submit to Allah and worship Him. And I'm just looking for new ways that I can worship Allah. And worship is so simple, guys, especially in Islam. It's so beautiful. All you need to do is make your intention, make your niyyah, and literally almost anything positive can be worship. Cooking for your family is worship. Cleaning up your home with the right intention is worship. Spending time with your loved ones with the right intention is worship. All it takes is intention to be in God's pleasure. And when I found that out, like, it just became so easy to embrace Islam even more, and to be a Muslim, and to choose, like, to really choose this faith for myself, and to say, like, this is what I want for myself and for my future, for my children. So that is essentially the story of how I found Islam again. Once again, this is not an invitation to come in, you know, attack your girl for the things I'm still learning, the things I'm still growing in, the things I'm still getting better at. Like, I am a work in progress, and so are you. And I wish that more of us would have grace with one another on the internet in how we speak to each other. Like, we are all flawed. Like, the person who is advising the other person is just as flawed, just in a way that they probably can't see. So please be mindful in the way that you handle other people's shortcomings. Like, you have to remember, even if this looks like the worst sin in the world to you, this is something that someone else is struggling with. It may be something that comes easy for you, but Allah has made this a test for another person. So have kindness in your heart and grace, and know that everybody is on a different journey. We all have different struggles, and we are all trying to get to the same place. Okay, I don't know how I'm gonna upload this, because this is probably the most vulnerable I've ever been on my channel. But I know there's so many people who probably can relate to not knowing where to start in finding that connection with Allah. But sincerely, all you have to do is talk to Him. It may feel a little bit crazy at first, but I promise you, once you start seeing Him answer in your life, seeing your du'as manifest, you will realize that you have been depriving yourself of the greatest handhold, the greatest line of connection to anyone in this life that you can ever have. Please trust me on this one. This video was mainly inspired by the amount of people who have been embracing Islam and learning about Islam, learning about the Quran on TikTok as a result of what has been happening in Gaza. So heartbreaking to know that, you know, it had to take people suffering and literally dying for people to open up their hearts and see that Islam is a religion of peace. But I'm happy that there are people who are waking up and realizing that this is not what the media has told you it is. Please keep our brothers and sisters in Gaza in your prayers. I think the death toll hit 10,000 today, which is absolutely heartbreaking and completely unnecessary. Like, I'm so ashamed to be an American having to experience this and know that our tax dollars are going into this. But I just make dua every day that Allah changes their situation and liberates them, frees them, and restores them. And I pray that you all do the same, because it could be any of us. Like, that is the thing with this life. Like, we get so entitled, and we don't realize that you could be at the receiving end of any of these tragedies at any given moment. So pray for these people like you'd pray for your brothers and sisters. Keep them in your hearts. Continue to spread awareness. Continue to donate. There will be charities that you can donate to within the description box of this video. And let's not let this die out like every other movement has died out, because there are literal people dying as a result of this. So thank you so much for watching today's video. Let's keep the discussion going in the comments. Love to hear you guys' stories about how you found Islam. And on that note, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.